Hello. Good afternoon. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce this WikiLeaks talk by Julian Assange, an investigative editor, and Daniel Berger, a writer and an analyst. So if you'll please join me in giving them a warm round of applause, please.
Hello everybody. I hope the audio is okay. So it's good to see that so many people made it to the talk. Despite the technical issues we have, we're happy to begin now. We've been thinking a while about what to present at this talk for this audience. So we will begin by discussing what WikiLeaks actually is about, to make sure that everybody here in the audience has an understanding of what this project is aiming at. In the second part, we will explain to you some principles that we have as an underlying theory of why we're actually doing this project. The third part will deal with a more advanced view of today's media and censorship in the media. And in the last part, we will be discussing why this project is especially important to everyone who is in this audience here today. So all the people attending this Congress. What is WikiLeaks? In a nutshell, we can define WikiLeaks as an entity that is publishing information. This information has a certain criteria that it needs to meet, and this criteria is described as quoted above. We accept classified, censored, and otherwise restricted material of political, diplomatic, or ethical significance. So basically, this means that apart from this criteria, there is no other judgment involved. This is a very important understanding to understand how WikiLeaks operates and also why certain material might be published that for some parts of society seems to be controversial, for example. But it is very important to define static criteria and not place any judgment on this criteria. So there's no censorship involved or any kind of bias from anyone involved in publishing. The wiki itself, or the project, operates an anonymous platform that is designed to be uncensorable by anybody in the world trying to censor it. And it is also, which is important, covered by the protection of different laws. A lot of the countries in today's world do not have really strong laws for the media anymore. But a few countries, like for instance Belgium, also the United States with the First Amendment, and especially, for example, Sweden, have very strong laws protecting the media and the work of investigative or general journalists. So from our perspective, this is something, if there are any Swedes here, you have to make sure that your country is really one of the strongholds of freedom of information. You have to make sure that this keeps there, this stays there, that this does not change. While we understand that things like the Pirate Bay may be of more immediate value to everyone here in the audience, this is not all that Sweden is about. There is a more underlying Please make sure that democratic values do not get undermined by consumption or by risks to potential businesses or things like this. We're talking about something more and much more important here. The second thing, it is a technology that is being used to defeat shortcomings in our societies. So we can perceive that our societies and the legal regulations we have are not really optimal. And we need to use the technology in a way to address these issues, to route around them, to maneuver around them, and to get to a goal that is a sane thing for society and not a subject of some weird regulation. We're enabling free speech and trying to save the fourth estate. We'll be talking about this a little bit more. For who is not familiar, the fourth estate presents the independent media as a controlling body in a state. We'll be discussing this a little bit more in detail. And it also is a proof of concept. This is also something very important to understand. The development of this platform is not finished and most likely will never be finished. And what right now is implemented is a test base or a proof of concept that shows that the actual ratio behind the project is working. And in this respect, there's going to be more help needed from a lot of talented people that I assume are also in this audience to further this development and to implement more mechanisms that have been defined as being useful. So I'll quickly introduce you to some technical challenges we have within the project. WikiLeaks is, after all, driven by a lot of technology. So one of the technical issues we're looking at is sanitizing of documents. Every document that gets published is in some way cleaned before metadata that can compromise a source who wants to remain anonymous is removed from this document. This is a big challenge as we also identify new means of metadata or, let's say, other concepts on how to get to a source if you're investigating. So this is also a developing process. There are some issues with SSL and trust in general that we perceive in our platform. We can say we do not trust, as a principle, we do not trust anyone operating a business that is selling some kind of certificates, for example. Ultimately, we believe that each of these businesses can easily be compromised. So the only certificate we trust is ours, and there's going to be some development for the future where we will address this with maybe we're looking into a customized Tor browser bundle or a live CD that only has our certificate to avoid being compromised from another entity. There's the issue of .onion addresses or Freenet and other similar concepts, which we find very useful, but unfortunately not used enough by everyone. So these platforms lack the political input still, or the political impact. People are not using it in a way that it is acceptable for the media to pick up information from .onion addresses or to use these to generate more traffic on the Tor network. And there is the general problematic thing that we're running, and this is a slight misconception sometimes. We're running a high availability network, but high availability in a sense of being censorship proof. So it's a different angle from saying that you want to be online for 99.9% of the time. If you want to make sure that nothing that you have online can ever be censored, even if your site goes down for half a day. So you need to implement mechanisms to make sure that you cannot be censored, and these mechanisms don't necessarily perform in the same way as some easy setups with a couple of caches in front and fast lines and easy hosting. So these are, I think, in a nutshell, the technological aspects of, or a few of the many technological aspects that we need to take care of. So this is a remainder from an older slide, actually. We had a hardware crash this morning, so a hard drive crash, and had to rewrite this a little bit. But we're going to take this to a next level with other development as well. So there's going to be more intelligent routing for documents, for content on the website, addressing legal issues that we might have in certain countries and similar things. So you want to talk about...
Okay, so I'll talk about...
Yeah, video, you pulled out the video. Sorry about that.
I will talk about some example cases. I'm not, in fact, perhaps we should see a show of hands here of how many people who have gone to WikiLeaks more than 10 times.
No, that's the wrong resolution.
So that looks to be about half the audience. So for the other half of the audience, you may have heard about some of the things we've done in the media, but what you hear about is frequently what is of greatest salacious interest to the Western media and to people in general. That doesn't tend to be our everyday work. So we'll give you just a couple of examples. There are many, many thousands of these examples, and maybe people can speak to us afterwards We don't want to exhaust you with all the successful examples which we have. So only 1 month after the Congress last year, we had a major legal fight on our hands with a big Swiss bank called Bank Julius Baer that ran a Cayman Islands operation and moved many assets, laundered money essentially, whether you want to say that's illegal or legal. It was certainly laundering money through the Cayman Islands. That bank was not able to attack our servers physically, but it did find a weak point, which was the domain name registrar, which was based in California. It then hired 3 lawyers who worked for Arnold Schwarzenegger and Celine Dion. These are classic Hollywood lawyers, and sued us in San Francisco. So we still had many alternative domains. So at no stage was the service interrupted across the board, but the most well-known address was taken down by that domain operator, Dynadot. In response, we built a legal posse, a legal team of people who were interested in the same cause, who came to defend us. So this is a very important lesson that as isolated individuals, people can achieve almost nothing. But when groups come together in common interests, they can achieve a lot. And so, so the groups that did come, and I should thank them, were the ACLU, the EFF, POGO, Ralph Nader, Citizen.org, 11 media organisations, big media organisations, who saw us as the thin end of the wedge on domain name-based censorship attacks, and a couple of professors from universities. That group of altogether 22 lawyers was able to defeat the Swiss bank's group of 3 lawyers. Now, many people say that, well, this shows that justice was done in the US system, that this was a product of the US justice system, that there was a problem, that it broke First Amendments, but then it reverted itself. It didn't revert itself. What happened is we outspent a Swiss bank by funding, through our community, 22 lawyers instead of 3. So it's very important to remember that justice doesn't just happen. Justice is forced by people coming together and exercising strength, unity, and intelligence. Okay. So there's another recent example of something that is a bit contentious, is the privacy issues involved in this project. From our perspective, we've dealt with these a lot, and we're not very concerned. I shouldn't say we're not concerned, but we have an understanding and a lot of experience dealing with these privacy issues and a set philosophical position. But for other people, there has been concern. So there was even concern in getting this talk on here at the Congress, believe it or not, to do with Sarah Palin. So we released Sarah Palin, the US Republican vice presidential candidate's emails. Now, people have said, well, this is her personal email. She's a political figure, and these emails may be of some political relevance, but they are her personal emails. Who's to judge the relevance, the political relevance? If it's us who is to judge the political relevance, then are we robust enough to judge this for all of society? Because in the Sarah Palin case,